Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I had just finished my night shift at the hospital where I work as a nurse, and I was completely drained. After 12 hours of running around, dealing with emergencies, and trying to keep everyone alive and comfortable, all I wanted was to grab some comfort food and crash in my bed. The local supermarket was on my way home, so I decided to stop by and get some snacks to reward myself for making it through another tough shift. I was in my scrubs, which probably didn't help with what was about to happen, but I was too tired to change before heading to the store. When I was browsing through the snack aisle, debating between chips and cookies, let's be honest, I was probably going to get both, a sweet old lady in her mid-70s approached me. She looked a bit lost and confused as she squinted at me through her thick glasses. The old lady politely asked if I could help her find the sugar. At first I thought she was joking, but then I realized she genuinely thought I worked there. Maybe it was because of my scrubs, or maybe she just assumed anyone in the store could help. Instead of correcting her, I decided to help. After all, helping people was literally my job, even if this wasn't my actual workplace. I cheerfully told her that the sugar was in the baking aisle and offered to show her where it was. When we were walking over, she pulled out a crumpled shopping list from her purse. The paper was covered in shaky handwriting, and she held it close to her face to read it. She then asked if I could also help her find flour, chocolate chips, and a can of peaches. I happily agreed, telling her I knew exactly where everything was. I found myself fully invested in her shopping trip. We went aisle by aisle, and I helped her locate everything on her list. The old lady was so sweet and chatty, telling me about how she was planning to bake cookies for her grandchildren who were coming to visit. When we got to the chocolate chips, I suggested the semi-sweet ones, explaining that they melt perfectly in cookies. The old lady seemed delighted and asked if I baked often. I told her I did and shared a tip about adding a teaspoon of cornstarch to cookie dough to make them extra soft and chewy. As we continued shopping, a woman in a business suit who had been hovering nearby suddenly approached us. She was carrying a fancy handbag and had that "I want to speak to the manager" haircut. Karen immediately started complaining, saying she'd been waiting for help for 10 minutes and needed to find organic quinoa, adding that nobody seemed to be doing their job. I tried to explain that I didn't actually work there, but Karen cut me off. She rudely insisted that since I was clearly helping the old lady, I could help her too, and called it ridiculous customer service. Before I could explain again, the old lady stepped in, defending me by saying how helpful I'd been and suggesting that Karen wait until we were finished. This only made Karen more angry, and she threatened to report me to my manager, declaring that she was in a hurry and deserved immediate assistance. At this point, we had reached the checkout counter, and the cashier was watching the scene unfold with growing amusement. The cashier commented on how well I knew my way around the store and asked if I was new. That's when I finally got to explain that I didn't work there and was actually a nurse who had just stopped by after my shift to get some snacks. The old lady was surprised to hear this and exclaimed that I should work there, since I'd been the most helpful employee she'd ever met. Karen's face turned red as several customers who had witnessed her behavior started laughing. She tried to defend herself by pointing out that I was wearing a uniform, asking how she was supposed to know. Other customers jumped in, with one suggesting that she could have asked politely instead of making demands. Another customer commented that I deserved a raise at my actual job, noting how kind I was to help despite just finishing a night shift. Karen stormed off while the old lady finished checking out her items. She turned to me with a warm smile and thanked me, saying I'd made an old lady's shopping trip easier and that my patients were lucky to have such a kind nurse. I paid for my snacks. Yes, I got both the chips and cookies and headed out. When I was leaving, I could hear the cashier and other customers still chuckling about the whole situation. The old lady waved goodbye and I smiled, knowing that, despite my exhaustion, I'd managed to help someone's grandmother with her shopping while accidentally becoming the unofficial employee of the month. Karen was still in the parking lot, aggressively loading her single bag of groceries into her luxury SUV, pointedly avoiding eye contact with me. I just smiled and walked to my car, thinking about how the cookies I helped pick out would make some grandkids very happy. I was diagnosed with epidermodysplasia verruciformis when I was 13. It's a rare genetic condition that makes your skin extremely susceptible to HPV infections, leading to these bark-like growths all over your body. Mine are particularly visible on my hands and parts of my neck. I've learned to live with it over the years, and while I still get stares and whispers, most people are decent enough to mind their own business or ask politely if they're curious. That one day, I just needed to grab some groceries from the supermarket. I was running low on everything and my usual delivery service was down. I typically shop late at night to avoid crowds, but I had no choice this time. I grabbed the cart and started making my way through the aisles, keeping my head down and trying to be as inconspicuous as possible. I was in the produce section when I heard the first gasp. A woman started screaming, "Oh my God," repeatedly, but I tried to ignore her and continue reaching for some tomatoes. She then started yelling for security, demanding that somebody call them immediately. I turned around to see a woman in her 40s wearing an expensive-looking tracksuit and sporting a dramatic blonde haircut, pointing at me with a shaking finger. I politely asked if everything was okay, but she just screamed at me to stay back, calling me a thing. By now, people were starting to stare. A small crowd was forming. I tried to explain that there had been a misunderstanding, but she cut me off. She started calling me a monster, pointing at my skin and accusing me of being some kind of human tree hybrid. I attempted to explain my medical condition, but she wouldn't let me finish. She started ranting about my father, making wild accusations about him having relations with a tree, suggesting that's how I came to be. The absurdity of her statement made me laugh, which only seemed to enrage her more. I tried again to explain that this was simply a genetic condition, but she wouldn't hear it. She started screaming for security again, demanding to know why nobody was doing anything. She insisted that I needed to be put down, calling me an abomination. A store employee tried to intervene, asking her to lower her voice because she was disturbing other customers. She responded by screaming even louder, asking if they were blind and insisting that I wasn't even human, calling me a disgrace to our world. I noticed a security guard approaching, speaking into his radio. Before he could reach us, Karen's eyes suddenly lit up with a manic gleam. She turned and sprinted toward the hardware section. The store employee yelled for her to stop while the security guard tried to calm everyone down, announcing that he'd called the police. That's when we heard her running back, and my blood ran cold. She was wielding a wood saw, running straight at me with it raised above her head. She was screaming about taking matters into her own hands and sending me back to the forest. Everything happened in a blur after that. I heard people screaming and scrambling to get away. I backed up against the produce display, knocking over some apples. Just as she was about a few feet away from me, there was a loud crack and a buzzing sound. Karen's body went rigid, the saw clattering to the floor as she collapsed. 2 police officers had arrived just in time, one with his taser still pointed at her. They quickly handcuffed her while she was still dazed on the ground. Even while being restrained, she kept insisting that I wasn't human, demanding that they test my DNA because I was part tree. One of the officers recited her rights, strongly suggesting she exercise her right to remain silent. The other officer checked on me and asked if I wanted to press charges. I told them absolutely, emphasizing that I wanted every possible charge pressed. When they led her away, she was still screaming about trees and monsters. The store manager approached me immediately, profusely apologizing for the incident. He insisted that my groceries would be free and assured me that the woman would be permanently banned from all their locations. They later told me she was charged with attempted assault with a deadly weapon, disorderly conduct, and hate crime charges due to discriminating against someone with a medical condition. She ended up serving jail time and was ordered to undergo psychiatric evaluation and treatment. The incident went viral after someone posted a video online, and surprisingly, It led to increased awareness about epidermodysplasia verruciformis. A local support group reached out to me, and I've since become an advocate for people with visible genetic conditions. Sometimes I look back at that day and still can't believe someone actually thought I was some kind of tree-human hybrid. But I guess it makes for one hell of a story at support group meetings. I've always been the responsible one in the family. While most of my cousins were out partying in college, I was working part-time and studying finance. By 25, I had my own home and a stable job as a financial advisor. This made me the go-to person in the family for money advice, which I didn't mind at first. That was until my uncles started taking advantage of my knowledge, and apparently now they want to take advantage of my wallet too. A couple of weeks ago, when my first uncle approached me about buying a house, let's call him Uncle 1 since I don't want to use real names here, he asked me if I could give him some advice about the house buying process. I told him that the first thing he needed to do was get his finances in order, suggesting he should probably start by collecting the money he was owed by his brothers. I was referring to the money he'd lent to my other two uncles, Uncle 2 and Uncle 3, several years ago. You see, about 5 years back, these three had this brilliant idea to buy a house together. Uncle 1 provided the down payment, and the plan was for him and Uncle 2's families to live there while Uncle 3 would be a silent partner. Uncle 1's family did move in, and for some reason they were paying rent despite having put down the down payment and supposedly being co-owners. I remember clearly warning him about this arrangement. I told him he really should get everything in writing and make sure he was legally protected. He brushed off my concerns, saying not to worry about it because they were family and they trusted each other. I couldn't help but roll my eyes at that classic line. Sure enough, after a while, Uncle 1's family moved out because the space was too small. Then Uncle 2 and Uncle 3 started renting out the vacant unit, with Uncle 2 basically living there for free, while Uncle 3 got partial ownership of a house without investing a dime. They promised to pay back Uncle 1's down payment, but 5 years later, he hasn't seen a cent. Fast forward to last night when my phone rang. It was Uncle 1 again. He started with asking how I was doing, and we chatted about nothing in particular for a while until he brought up buying a house again. I asked if he had questions about the process. That's when he dropped the bomb. He wanted to know if I'd be willing to sign on as support on the loan and help with the down payment. I nearly choked on my coffee. I asked him to clarify if he really wanted me to co-sign and provide a down payment. He explained that he had talked to his brothers about getting his money back, but they said they needed more time, and they had suggested he ask me for help in the meantime. I spelled it out for him, asking if he was really asking me to co-sign a loan and give him money for a house I had no interest in, instead of getting the money his brothers owed him. He seemed to falter when I put it that way, but I'd had enough. I told him no and that I had to go before hanging up. I hung up, but I wasn't done. The next morning I sent a group text to all three uncles. I started by sarcastically noting their interest in real estate before giving them some free financial advice. I told Uncle 1 he needed to take legal action to recover his down payment. To Uncle 2 and Uncle 3, I pointed out that they'd been profiting from a property they got for free using someone else's money. I then reminded them that as a financial advisor, I was obligated to report suspicious financial arrangements when I became aware of them, and mentioned that I'd hate to have to look into this situation more closely, especially considering Uncle 2's recent bankruptcy filing and Uncle 3's tax situation. The response was immediate. Within a week, Uncle 1 received a payment plan in writing from both brothers, with the first installment already in his account. As for me, I've been mysteriously removed from the family group chat and haven't been invited to the last two family gatherings. I consider this an absolute win. I'd always been the good daughter. You know, the one who tried to keep the peace in a family that was anything but peaceful. My mother was an alcoholic, and my older brother, well, let's just say he had anger management issues that would make a volcano look calm. I met my now husband at a local coffee shop where I was working while finishing my nursing degree. He was different from anyone I'd ever dated. kind, stable, and drama-free. My family, however, seemed allergic to stability. Things first went south when I brought him to a family barbecue. My brother, who was already 3 beers in, started making snide comments about how my then boyfriend was too good for our family. When my boyfriend politely stood up for himself, my brother tried to turn it into a fist fight. As if that wasn't bad enough, his wife actually threatened to shoot me when I stepped between them. Yes, you read that right. Threatened to shoot me at a family barbecue. After that incident, I cut contact with my brother. When I got engaged 6 months later, I made it crystal clear to everyone that he and his wife were not welcome at the wedding. But my mother, oh, she just couldn't help herself. One day, my mother called to tell me she had spoken with my brother the day before. When I asked what about, she revealed that she had taken it upon herself to tell him he and his wife could come to the wedding, claiming they had promised to behave themselves. I was furious and told her she had no right to discuss my wedding with them, let alone invite them. She tried to guilt-trip me by reminding me he was my brother and that I needed to think of the family. When I brought up how he had tried to punch my fiancé and how his wife had threatened to shoot me, she just brushed it off, saying that was all in the past and that family was family. But it didn't stop there. My mother, who couldn't go 2 days without a drink, suddenly had all these amazing ideas for the wedding. She started pressuring us about having an open bar, even though neither my fiancé nor I drink. When I told her we weren't interested in paying for other people to get drunk at our wedding, she started going on about what people would think. Then she demanded we get a bigger venue because she wanted to invite my cousin Martha's family, people I'd never even met. She tried to sweeten the deal by pointing out that Martha's husband owned a liquor store and might give us a discount on drinks. The demands kept coming. Every day brought a new must-have for a wedding that was supposed to be small and intimate. The final straw came when I discovered my mother had been giving out invitations to people we hadn't approved, promising them an open bar and a huge party. One Monday evening, I was sitting on our couch, scrolling through yet another series of texts from my mother about wedding demands when I just snapped. I asked my fiancé what he was doing the next day, and he casually replied he was planning to hang out with me. That's when I asked if he wanted to get married, right then and there. He was surprised but immediately agreed, asking if I was serious and enthusiastically saying yes. One of our closest friends was ordained and happened to be free the next evening. Another friend offered to be our witness. We got married in a beautiful park at sunset with just 4 people present, us and our 2 friends. It was perfect. But oh boy, my mother's reaction was something else. Within hours of finding out, she was on social media, playing the victim card like it was an Olympic sport. Her post read, "Heartbroken mother seeks prayers and support. My own daughter got married without telling me. No mother should have to experience the pain of missing their only daughter's wedding. Please share if you believe in the sanctity of family." The comments were flowing in, all sympathizing with the poor mother who had no idea why her daughter would do such a terrible thing. That's when I decided to set the record straight. I made my own post, tagging everyone who had commented on hers. Since we're sharing stories, let me tell you why I eloped. My alcoholic mother invited people I've never met to my wedding without permission, demanded an open bar we didn't want, tried to force me to invite my brother, who attempted to assault my now husband, and my sister-in-law who threatened to shoot me. But sure, let's talk about the sanctity of family. I included screenshots of her texts, demanding the open bar and trying to guilt-trip me about my brother. The backpedaling in the comments was glorious. All those relatives who had been calling me heartless suddenly went quiet. My mother's phone apparently blew up, with messages from family members who had no idea about her behavior. She tried to damage control by deleting her original post, but screenshots are forever. She ended up having to make a public apology, admitting she might have overstepped in her wedding demands. These days, she thinks twice before trying to play the victim on social media. We spent the money we saved from not having a big wedding on a down payment for our house. Best decision ever. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.